Hey, Corey.
Good evening. Can we make the pollen an honorary select board member for today? Because it's in my house, it's on my car, it's in my clothing. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I know. I was going to do the right work on my boat, and I was warned against it by Woody Chittick. He's the expert on all such things with varnish.
Yeah, that would have been a bad time, Jack.
I know, but I got all the boats ready, though. Okay, are we at 7 o'clock yet?
Yep.
Good to go.
I'm just going to start Facebook. 1 second while I start Facebook, please.
Everybody here? We ready to go, Tracy?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Cohasset Select Board meeting for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like a roll call, starting with
Corey Evans here.
Jean Healy-Dippold here.
Paul Grady here.
Jack Creighton here, and Diane Kennedy had a previous engagement. She's unable to be here. We'd like to start this as we usually do with a pledge to allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just a note, we just passed D-Days, so we should think about all the brave Americans who gave their life for freedom around the world. So just wanted to bring that up. All right, tonight's meeting will be conducted on the Zoom platform and live streamed on Cohasset 143 TV and Cohasset's Facebook page. The public is invited to participate on the Zoom platform, which can be accessed using the link provided at the top of the posted agenda for tonight's meeting. Members of the board and other scheduled participants will be able to participate when called on by the chair. Board members will be able to ask questions of any participant. All votes taken at this meeting will be by roll call. Members of the public who wish to ask questions are asked to raise their virtual hand on Zoom, and at the discretion of the chair will be promoted into the meeting. Members must provide their full name and address for the public record. Please note that comments on platforms other than Zoom will not be monitored. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Cohasset 143 TV. We customarily start all of our meetings with a public comment period. Anybody in the community can call in and speak there. Any comments brought up will not be discussed. There will be no discussion on that. And at the end of the meeting, they may be considered to be included in a future agenda. Tracy, do we have anybody waiting?
Nope, no comments.
Hearing no comments, let's move forward. I see Police Chief Bill Quigley is here to give us an update on the overview and the road clearance for the Cohasset Triathlon. Chief Quigley.
Good evening, board. I think Bill Burnett may also be in the audience if you see Bill Burnett there somewhere.
I just promoted Mr. Burnett.
So I can start it off.
Yeah.
That triathlon is going to be the registration will be the last Saturday in June, and the actual event will be on Sunday, the last Sunday in June. We've had several meetings. Bill has been working close with the public safety group. And I think we're in good shape. We're sort of trying to knock the rust off. It's been a couple of years since we've had the event, so we're really we've dusted off the plans, we've updated things. I know Bill has inspected the roads to make sure they're at a standard that will meet the needs of the triathletes. There was some concern on Elm Street, but I think that's manageable. All in all, we're ready for a good event. There's a traffic plan, there's a safety plan in place. We've met with the fire chief and the rest of the crews, and I can turn it over to Bill if he has anything, or maybe, Bill, you said you may bring a graphic of the actual course that you can share your screen out.
Yeah, Chief, thank you. That's wonderful. Just a couple quick comments, and I would like to share my screen more so the public can be aware of what's happening with the event. It's been a 3-year hiatus, and we're excited to be back. The event is going to be a great turnout. We have over 1,000 athletes, with over 25% of them coming from Cohasset. So it's another great attendance. It's Sunday, June the 26th. We will be setting up on Saturday. We've worked closely with the Sandy Beach Association. That setup will occur in the evening. So definitely the beach is open. I just want to make sure it's very clear on Saturday. So come to the beach on Saturday. We'll set up in the evening, assuming it's a beautiful beach day. And then on Sunday mornings, bright and early, the event starts. You'll see athletes coming in, parking at the music circus. Then they're going to end up down to the Sandy Beach area for the main venue. The race starts at 7:45. We do that quite early, frankly. It's one of the earlier triathlons because we want to make sure that the community is open and early to normal traffic as quickly as possible. If I can share if it's okay, just for a moment, just share my screen share. Is that okay? Whoever's monitoring?
Sure,
I think
Bill.
I gave you permission, but if you can't, let me know, okay?
That's okay. I don't need to. I can explain. It's okay.
No, Bill,
I gave you permission to share if you'd like to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
no, I was just saying for those of us who are less athletically inclined or can't remember back 3 years, could you explain what a triathlon is so we can know what we can aspire to when we grow up?
100% here. Oh, actually, I see what you're saying. I can share myself here.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Just leave the puppies up the whole meeting. We could just say that.
Okay. Can you all see this, please?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So a triathlon occurs right here at Sandy Beach. The entire beach parking lot will be filled with bikes. There's no parking at Sandy Beach. They will swim with a wetsuit on because of the cold ocean temperatures. Everyone was required to wear a wetsuit. And we swim in waves. Not all 1,000 people leave at once. It's certain waves that leave one after each other. It's a 1/4 mile swim, kind of an oval here. And this is not technically a square, an oval, one length of the beach. They come in and then they hop on a bike. And in a wider scale view, you see it's a 12-mile bike. Follow my pointer here through Cohasset, around into North Situate. There's down Border Street, back onto Gannett, turn right onto Main Street, headed back into Cohasset. We go around St. Anthony's Church, through Elm Street, again, back through the Commons, down Main Street, all the way down to Cedar Street, go past the transfer station. Then we're on 228, make it right up to Jerusalem, and then head back into Sandy Beach. And again, it's about approximately 12 miles, that bike. And the chief quickly and I are working in coordination with the Situate Police Department to ensure that that'll be a safe ride for all. And then once you're in the Sandy Beach area, it's one of the best 5K courses around. It's literally you come around Atlantic to Beach Street, up Jerusalem, and then over, then back onto Atlantic. It's again a 5K 3-mile run around Little Harbor, where you'll see the runners. I do anticipate that there will be, the roads were open. It depends on the biking and run course, but approximately 10:30, I think things should be open at that point.
Mhm.
I'll pause if I don't mean to go too fast. I know I'm conscious of your time. If that was helpful.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
The only note that Chief and I would request, I have 2 comments, actually 3 comments. One, if you are a resident or an owner of a business in town, please connect with me. It's important to me. This event is to give back to Cohasset, promote businesses and promote our wonderful town. So please connect with me. I would be happy to chat with you about things we can do to help your business. Secondly, we're always looking for volunteers. If you have kids that like to get involved, or your family want to get involved, please connect with me. It's a wonderful event to be part of. And then thirdly, to the board, we do request that the transfer station be closed on Sunday morning from the opening until approximately 10:45.
We're going to delay the opening.
That's
We've
right,
done
yeah.
this in, the past years that, we usually delay the opening. We say till 11 a.m., but it's usually a lot sooner.
That's right.
Does anybody on the board have any concerns about that?
It's what we've done in the past. So I think just, looking forward, Bill, to having another good race and getting out of the water as fast as possible. So
That's right. Thank you.
And just as, a side note to the board, this is an event where, we utilize about 30 detail officers. And obviously that exceeds the capacity of our local department. So we turn this into a regional training event, an interoperability training event. We just sort of seize the opportunity to utilize officers from Hingham, Situate, Hull, Noah, whoever else will lend us officers. We have 4 motorcycles coming in from Quincy PD, along with the Metro at command post, which will be set up in the Sandy Beach parking lot. So it sort of gives us a chance to fine tune our radio frequencies, make sure there's been a lot of changes over the last 3 years. We've gone from analog systems to digital systems. So this is sort of like a shakedown cruise of, if we had a real critical incident, we get to see how the command post is in the interoperability with the command post in all of our field units. So it's sort of a dual purpose. And again, we seize the opportunity when we have all these people together to take that 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday morning to actually put the command post in use and show people Cohasset so they know some of the streets and some of the main hotspots.
Okay. Any other board comments? Jane?
So I think that, Mr. Burnett, it would help if you could provide the snapshot of what you just sent, and maybe we already have it, but to the town, in addition to just like a brief email summary of the information you just listed, namely the roads that are going to be closed, that the transfer station is going to be delayed until 11, and that if you're a business, they should contact you. Here's your contact information if you want to get more involved or volunteer, because then our communication specialist can help publicize that for you.
Wonderful you said that. Chief Quigley connected me to that person, right, Chief?
Okay, great.
On email. And so, is that right? Is that right, Chief?
Justin, yes.
Yeah, Justin. So, no, really, really well said. I missed the Mariner was always a wonderful way of communicating this information. Chief and I would do that and every year, but we need to find other means, obviously, now. I think, and I will work with Justin to ensure that he has information he needs.
Yeah, because people might get a little thrown off with the transfer station opening, just because.
I agree. Look, and that's one last comment. So really well said, because there has been a hiatus for 3 years. I don't want surprises. We don't want anyone to be, what's happened? Everyone was used to having it on the last weekend of June. Well, they're not thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
So I recognize that I've got to do a better job with some signage, with a signboard, something to get more just attention that it's coming, right? So I'm with you. I think about it every day, frankly.
I think we might also want to place a sign the weekend before at the transfer station, warning people that next Sunday it will not open until 11 o'clock.
Right.
A great point. We can make that happen with one of our message boards.
Paul?
I just, I think everything was well said, but I'd also take a minute from at least this board member to thank you, Bill, for organizing this and working so hard to get it going. It's a popular event. Kids, parents, families love it. So coming from me personally, I won't speak for the other board members, but maybe I will a little bit. I'd like to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think I can assure you that the other board members, including Diane Kennedy, who's not here, agree. This is just a signature event for Cohasset, and it's the type of thing that Cohasset does well, like a Memorial Day and this. And again, thank you, Bill. You do a great job. You're a credit to your town, and you live in our town. Yeah.
And thank you, Chief Quigley.
Yes.
This is it's always fun to do this, and it's not often we get to get everybody together, and it's just it turns into a really fun day for us.
Well, it's a fun day if there's good weather. That's
Yeah.
Well, now, let's not speak about that.
Exactly. We need good weather. Good weather.
Mhm.
Are there any further
you.
comments from the board? All right, Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you and good luck.
Chief Quigley, thank you for doing a good job. The behind the scenes, it's important for people to understand that you keep things in proper order, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um,
Supported by
next-
the team.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Farmers Market Entertainment License. When they appeared before us, I think it was May 24th, we approved it, but it came out that in fact they might need an entertainment license.
Can I move this? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, you can move
Sure.
it.
Yeah, I think this is something we all want. So I move that we approve the application for entertainment license for the Cohasset Farmers Market. There's no specific dates on here for the Thursdays in which the Cohasset Farmers Market will take place.
I'd second that.
All right, is there any further discussion? The motion is made and seconded to approve entertainment license for the season for Farmers Market. Is there any further discussion? Call a roll call vote. We'll start with Corey and then
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean Dipole,
Jean Healy Dipple.
Jane Daly Dill. I stand corrected, Jean. Jack Creighton, aye. Okay. South Shore Habitat for Humanity has an issue, but I do not see that there. Oh, she is here.
I made it.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, I
So-
had a ZBA. I was at ZBA at 7, so I apologize.
All right, well, that's fine. You're here. Can you tell us what you're looking for?
So we were looking to see if we could maybe work with the town to have some of the application fees waived for some of the costs associated with construction of the home. Since this is a town-sponsored 40B, we did some preliminary work on some of the permitting costs for the applications. And without finalizing costs, and we're kind of in the preliminary stages, we're looking at close to, if I've calculated some sewer fees correctly, close to $15,000 in application fees to the town. Outside of that, we've got other fees we have to work with, some Roy River Water, some Eversource, and those are, outside of the town. So we were looking to see in some towns, we meet with the board to see if they'd be willing to waive application fees, not expenses. We've already contributed $2,000 to the peer review fund. We realize that's an expense that has to be paid. So we're not looking to waive any of those, just maybe some application fees.
Have you looked at, yeah, I believe that the water and the sewer fees they're separate bodies, and I think they're the ones that have to waive them. I'm not sure that we have the ability to waive those.
Correct. Water's through Ware River Water. So that's another issue. That's not included in our number. But the sewer connection fee, I believe, is with the town sewer departments.
Well, it's not a sewer, it's a separate entity. So you would
Oh.
have to speak with them.
Okay,
Yeah. It's a separate entity.
okay,
Okay.
got it. Okay.
So if we took that fee out, what are we looking? Well, first of all, comments from the board.
I think that makes sense. Affordable housing, I'm glad to see this project. This project's been a long time kind of coming. So yeah, I think it'd be appropriate for us to waive building fees. And Jack's very correct in that if you do want to get the sewer fees waived, you'd have to appear in front of the sewer commission. Sewer fees aren't in the purview of this board.
Okay, got it. So sewer commission, got it.
Okay, Paul,
If I could just get caught up to speed, where exactly is this?
808 Jerusalem Road.
West corner.
Okay, thank you. I actually was right in front of me. I apologize.
That's all right. That was the property that burned down a number
Yeah.
of years ago.
The antique shop.
Is there any, the public weighing in on that? Any further comments from the board? Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I'd move to waive the building fees, the application and or permit fees required for the construction of the homes at 808 Jerusalem Road as to South Shore Habitat for Humanity's application.
Second it.
We have a motion made and seconded to waive the fees for the Habitat and Humanity at 808 Jerusalem Road. Hearing no further discussion, I call a roll call. Start with Corey,
Ray Evans, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean
Jean
Healy,
Healy, aye. You can just call me Jean Healy, Jack.
okay, Jack Creighton, aye. Thank you very much. And by the way, just for people at home to know, this has been a long time coming. I was actually way back on the affordable housing when Habitat made their first presentation. They do a wonderful job, and I think sometimes it takes some time, but we do move things forward, and this is an excellent project. And thank you, South Shore Habitat.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right, very good. Okay, moving forward, last night, the select board met in what was a very productive cooperative meeting in which we talked about establishing goals for the upcoming year, trying to decide what we felt the community was looking for. It was a fantastic meeting. We worked together, and it was very interesting that we all kind of agreed on what we need to get done. So now we have to work forward, but I'd ask Jean to give us an update and give everybody an overview.
Sure, I'll summarize the goals based on my notes. So if people have a different recollection or notes, certainly weigh in, and you too, Tracy. So the first, well, we agreed on 3 goals: communications, zoning bylaw reform, and addressing our infrastructure. And so specifically within those 3 broad areas, which are the same goals as last year. As to communications, we landed on a goal, which was to continue our communication and resident engagement efforts, included through an updated, more comprehensive website that also has a CRM system to address resident inquiries, as well as specific communication campaigns for the select board's other priorities.
Just point of order quickly. I know we all talked about this, but we didn't make an official vote on it. Typically,
No.
if I recall this process, the town staff will then bring us the summary, and then we can talk, and then we can officially adopt. I'm just wondering if that's a little bit better, because I think there will be some questions, and I don't want to have an impression that something was done that wasn't done, nor having to correct something later on. Does that make sense?
I think that we will follow the customary procedure. Right now, we're telling the citizens of Cohasset what it is we discussed in our broad areas of agreement. It has not been formally adopted.
Yeah, no, Corey, I agree. We haven't formally adopted.
Okay,
anything.
yeah, just as long as we keep it super high level. I mean, we do have a recording and we talked about it, but I don't want to get into the details because we haven't officially adopted anything yet. So.
Yeah, although I do think this is the meeting where we intend to adopt them, right, as we discussed yesterday. So the second board goal relating to zoning more generally was to continue work on the zoning reform that has been ongoing, including continuing to provide legal, technical, and communications resources to bring forth proposed comprehensive bylaws for a 2023 annual town meeting. So that was the second big goal. And then the third big goal relating to infrastructure was to secure funding for certain infrastructure projects this fall while simultaneously working on long-term financial and capital planning, including through a group appointed by the select board. So those are sort of like high level where my notes landed. And I do think that we need to formally vote on those goals. Tracy, I don't know if you have goals, based on the notes that we were doing last night that you want to share with us, but that's what my notes reflect as to the goals, which I think are consistent with where we landed on all three of these topics.
I think it's quite accurate. And also, these are goals. These are not specific line item. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the goals, although we're expressing what our aspirations are, they're not cast in stone. The board can change them, can modify them, but this gives a sense of the overall tone that we wish to suit going forward. Paul?
Forgive me, I may be mistaken then, Jack. I thought in part of the discussion, especially about the opening one, communications and webpage, we were going to look into deadlines and establish deadlines as far as getting the page and a progress report as it went. Getting input from the different boards because they're entitled to that as well, I think. But we should have deadlines as to when we can let the town know when we anticipate that. That's, at least we discussed it last night, and I kind of like to stick to that.
I think that, and you're very correct, Paul. We did discuss the importance of deadlines for the purpose of what we would go for at this thing. This is broad-based goals, the various how we implement deadlines and all that. We can address later, but we're looking for that. Chris, I see you have your hand raised. How are you feeling, by the way?
I'm still under. I'm feeling better. Thank you. I am still under quarantine, according to Mary Goodwin. So, though I am walking the dog. So, it's just a follow up on Paul's point, which is a good one. Is that what we've done the last several years after the board kind of formalizes its general direction? We go back, talk as staff, and try to come up with some very specifics, perhaps some reporting periods or some maybe specific action items that might help move some of these things forward. Circulate it with all of you. You look at that, and then you adopt them, and that way it's kind of a back and forth process. So the staff has, again, in this case, maybe some IT, maybe some communication folks, and some others. We'll come back with a plan, and then you'll say, "Hey, that's great," or "Let's add this or do that." Does that make some sense?
Can I respond to that?
Paul, yes, go ahead.
It makes all the sense in the world, Chris, and I fully agree with you. But I'm a firm believer, and I get in deadlines as well. We can do everything that you just said. Again, you have my full agreement on that, but there should be a deadline as to say we want to get a web page up and running. All right, let's set a parameter. Let's set a time frame. Can we expand upon that to track from it, get some more input? Of course, but I'm just saying to open up lines of communication to the town, let them know that there's going to be a new president of the tree, and then I think that deadlines are imperative.
Oh, I apologize if I wasn't being clear. I agree with that. So what would come back to you would be like, here are the benchmark timeframes we're looking at. Like, for example, with the website that's been underway for a while. That the big challenge isn't so much us; it's the contractor that we're our provider. So we want to come back and say, here we're working at this, and here's what we're looking at, and here are the deadlines, right? And then you collectively may say we need to be more aggressive, but that's fine. Or and again, there'll be regular updates. And again, so I agree that they need to be timers on these things, so people know what they're working towards. And sometimes there might be, as we poke at something, and maybe we have to get this, and we have to get A, B, and C done before we get to D. Or maybe setting up a meeting, or setting up an RFP, and there's deadlines on those kinds of things. So yes, I agree with you completely. There should be deadlines, and I want to be able to get you back deadlines that could also be realistically met. Because if you tell us we need the website up by next week, I can tell you, well, I can't. So
Well, that's fair enough, Chris. I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's fair enough. But again, what I would say, and then let it lie, is we've got our new communications director. He seemed very positive last night. Again, so we established a goal. We're all in agreement. So we should have this up and running, say by, let's say, September 1st. If there's a reason why that it's not going to happen, as much lead time as possible as to why it's not going to happen, or we come in ahead of the game, even better, all the better. It's just opening up the line of communication, and that the town knows that, again, there's good things coming. For lack of a better word, they're going to have easier access. Our antiquated page is going to go south, and that's we start keying up that kind of thing. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Other comments along this deadline? I will, for purposes of this meeting and approving these goals, I think does not contradict deadlines. If we give these goals and vote tonight in public session that we're going to move on as these goals, number one, it doesn't preclude other things. And number two, it doesn't mean we were not going to do deadlines. I think when we set the agenda, we're going to have pretty aggressive timetables to know exactly where we stand on all of these, but that doesn't have to be done procedurally for the board to approve this as our goals.
I think we got two issues with that, though, Mr. Chair. One is that, the agenda says overview, not vote. And the second one is we don't have anything in the packet. There's no text to vote on. So, I think we're certainly all in agreement on what we need to do. I think to Paul's point, I want to be sure that everything we talked about is in text before we adopt anything. Because if we just say, oh, we're going to adopt these things, I think it's just going to lead to stuff getting dropped and things being confused. So I think we're in consensus right now. I think it's a good place to be. And I'm looking forward to having a text document which we can approve and adopt formally, which lays all this stuff out.
I have a compromise that I think will address everything, hopefully, is that let's put together the full text for the next select board hearing, and it will be on the agenda, including a vote on that. And in the interim, we'll ask Chris to come back with some deadlines particular to the website, which has been ongoing for many years now, in terms of, it was last year's goal too, with some goals, and we can consider, how we want to address the deadline aspect in the text of the goal. If we want to add that in during the vote, or if we want to keep it high level. We already have a deadline in the third goal as to the fall. So it's not like we can't not have timing in a goal. I don't think that's,
no.
But we want to make sure that that the timing is realistic for what we need to do. We also don't want to race forward and push out a bad product. If we need to find a new vendor or something like, I think we can talk through that. And so maybe it makes sense to, given that, maybe we need to work through the deadline a little more in order to figure out, a game plan that we can add into a goal and have confidence it will be met.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because that does what we do. This original vote on this was just, maybe more of a placeholder to say, yeah, let people know in the community the broad parameters of what we've agreed on. It was not meant to be very specific. And I think Corey and Paul are looking for a little bit more specific. That has to be done in text. And so Tracy, is everybody fine with that? I see nods all along. I don't think it has to come to a formal vote. Tracy, could you make sure that's on the agenda for the next meeting?
Sure.
All right.
And we'll ask Chris to propose a deadline for the website as well as the CRM.
Yes. Well, he's already told us he's going to do that, but let's underline that. Any more comments on this? Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak on the issue? Okay, let's move on to Chief Quigley talking about parking fines update and increase.
Hey, I'm back. I sent a memo to the board on May 23rd, stating I respectfully request that the honorable board consider updating and increasing the fines for illegal parking in Cohasset pursuant to Article 3, Section 1 of the Cohasset Traffic Rules and Regulations dated August 8th, 2001. And across the board, most of the fines, with the exception of handicapped parking and blocking a hydrant, are $25. Sandy Beach permit violation is $50. We've made some temporary adjustments to those fines, to the Sandy Beach fines and Government Island fines over the last couple of years. We've bumped it up to $100 between July and it's sunsetted in October of each year. I'm proposing that the entire fine structure be looked at and reviewed by the board.
Do you have the ability to share this? That way we can put it in the video.
It should be on the OneDrive.
No, I have it, but I wanted here for everyone to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody has that. Sorry.
Does Tracy have it or?
It looks like I think Gene's working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's an array of different violations from restricted place to overtime parking to, parking the wrong way. We are proposing that the baseline fine be $50. And as far as Sandy Beach and Sandy Beach, Government Island, and Wadley Park, we stick to that $100 temporary fine that we had been using. That's working. That's we've enjoyed great success with that. And quite frankly, these fines haven't been addressed in a meaningful way, with the exception of handicapped and hydrant violations since 2001. So it's been 22 years. In the overhead, the back end of this has gotten much more expensive. The vendors that process these tickets, we don't do this in-house. These tickets are processed electronically now. So there is a fee that the town does pay, and this will cover that. So I leave that to the board.
I think we can put that down. Comments from the board? Corey, is your hand still up or?
Yeah, I've got new. I think Paul was first though. So Paul, please.
All right.
I'll come next.
I'll ask a question both Chief Quigley and to the chair. First off, Chief, could we go higher than that? And secondly, I'll ask the chair this question. Are there any other fines, or is this the improper place to discuss any other fines that could be attached, limits to our parking, that kind of things we've discussed, littering fines? It maybe not be the proper forum. So
We could do that. These are parking fines on the agenda.
okay.
So it has to do with parking. We can do that. If people want it on the agenda for other fines around town, we could certainly put that on a future agenda. But for now, let's focus on this parking schedule that's before us.
So as a deterrent, then I'll go to my initial question. Could we go a little higher than that? No, I'm all about deterrence.
You can go up to $100, with the exception of safety violations, handicap and hydrant. Those can be higher. They're at $200. We're at the we can go to $250 actually on the handicapped and the hydrant. That's the statute, but everything else is generally around either 50 or 100, and it's completely in the board's hands. It's a regulation as opposed to a law.
But we can only go up to 100.
Correct.
Right, okay. Other comments from the board? Corey?
Chief, one question. I think and you just alluded to it. So if you wouldn't mind just expanding on what your take is on how effective these changes will be. Obviously, the goal isn't to collect money from people, and you've said that in these meetings before. We're not trying to earn money, even though people may think we are. But this is trying to change behavior. So, do you think that this change, you've got enough experience in this, that this will cause a behavioral change?
I can tell you, what we did experience, during COVID in the last couple of years, when we changed the fine from 50 at Sandy Beach to 100, that had a dramatic impact on illegal parking. People actually, some if you go there with 4 people in the car, it's $12 a person, and they sort of absorb the cost as the cost of doing business. They pitch in and pay the fine. It's $50 to park for the day.
Right, for the beach.
$100 sort of get your attention, does get your attention.
Right.
And it's worked.
And then the only other one that kind of hits my mind is because I know people do this, but the all-night parking were prohibited. I do wonder if there's a little bit of a reverse incentives. If somebody, let's say, got a ride home from one of our eating establishments because they didn't feel comfortable driving, I don't want to unintentionally encourage people to drive home if they're not feeling comfortable about it. So that's one thing where I'm just wondering. I'm not arguing either way for it. Just it's a concern in my mind.
Totally fair point, and I've thought of that as well. And Tracy is our parking clerk.
Okay.
And she's very understanding.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Paul?
And I agree with Corey's point. My thing is that I remember in Cohasset, I had to leave my boat overnight in a car, and it was a simple matter of calling the police and letting them know it's there. That'd be, to me, the logical thing to do. And if I had, someone called me and say, "Hey, Dad, can you pick me up?" Well, I'm going to let the police know I'm leaving a car overnight. And same as we did in the comment. I think they're pretty accommodating about that.
That's an excellent point.
That's just my impression.
We get those calls every weekend. That's an excellent point. That it goes. We have a roll call, and it goes on the roll call board. And if it's every weekend, we may have something to say about that. Yeah, he may need an intervention, but it's a good point. We definitely accommodate people.
Okay. Is there any way we can? I don't want to make this an official policy, but again, if there's a way, we can partner with Safe. We can do something to say, we'd rather have you leave your car here and get a ride than try to avoid the fine. I'm not suggesting I know the answer to that, but if we can, make that an option, I think that's great.
We sort of, we use, reasonableness as our guide, and we haven't had any issues at all.
All right.
Yeah, I think we can trust that our department is very responsive and very reasonable about these things. Do we have any other comments?
One question, Chief Quigley, is the $100 limitation something we, the town, have imposed on ourselves in our rules and regulations, or is that a function of state statute?
I'm not 100% sure. That is the practice across the Commonwealth for things other than safety. And some of these are just, they're permit violations. I can tell you, the statute does limit handicap and like parking a hydrant. So I'm not 100% sure. I can get back to you.
Yeah. Tracy, is anybody? Oh, Paul, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I've got one more thing to say about that. That's why, as we all know, in the town, parking is at a premium. And I think due to some future events and things like that, parking is going to be more at a premium. So I think we want to take every step to ensure that the rules are followed, and that the parking is available for all people who come into town or town residents. And so, Chief, that would be an interesting thing to see if it is, as Madam Vice Chair just put it, is it a statute, or can we set it? Because I'd like to ensure that those rules are obeyed. That'd be my case, so people can get a chance to walk around the harbor. They can get, or they can go to Sandy Beach and, and do the thing, but they just have to do the right thing first.
I mean, it's and I agree. And I think, once we get this business out of the way. I think, with the board's guidance and direction and permission, we should take a whole, take a 360-degree look at, the parking regulations that we have. They really need to be updated, especially when it comes to the town parking lot and municipal parking. One of the things I'm asking the board to look at is enacting a regulation wherein you cannot leave you can't leave an unregistered vehicle on any town property at this point. We can tow it if it's unregistered, but if it has a bad inspection sticker, it should be, we should be able to write a ticket. And if it's we don't want to. We've found ourselves in a situation in the town lot just recently where people are storing boats
I saw that.
on trailers in the town lot. We don't have a regulation that deals with that. So people, I mean, unfortunately, it could turn into 3A Marine in the town lot, and there wouldn't be much we could do about it at this point. As long as the trail is registered.
Yeah. Are these boats on trailers, is it like overnight, or is it off season for a length period of time, or?
It varies, but they are on trailers. They are registered. So there's no regulation that covers it. And I've done some research. Places like Salem has some excellent rules, and some other places on the water. You can't leave a recreational vehicle or vehicle in excess of 40 feet. You can't park a vehicle in excess of 40 feet or any type of vessel on a detached trailer. We have the lot on Pleasant Street, that secondary lot on Pleasant Street. We had a landscaper from Situate that was storing his landscape trailer in that lot. And there's not a lot we can do about it. It's registered. It's a municipal lot. So I have crafted I'm sorry.
No, I would suggest that that's something that we could, why don't you put together a secondary list of parking issues, and we'll put it on the agenda, later on, because I think the town probably is interested in that. Corey, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I was going to thank Chief for his work on that, and move that we adopt his recommendations. I do like the chief leading this discussion and bringing stuff to us. So I would move that we adopt the proposed changes to parking fines as presented today by the chief.
Do we have a second? Paul, are you seconding or commenting?
Could I second that with a condition?
So you want to amend it?
I want to amend it. I'm sorry. Poor choice of words.
We got to second it first, I think.
That the chief, I'm sorry, Corey?
I think we have to second a motion before the motion can be amended. I believe that's the
I'll
proper.
follow your lead on that, if that's the case.
Oh, so second it, and then you can propose an amendment. Yeah,
Second it.
What's the amendment?
I'd like to propose some amendment that Chief Quigley can maximize the fines to anything that he sees reasonable. Just as a deterrent. It's not out to take money out of people's pockets, but I would like to see him granted the leeway to maximize the fines to any way he sees fit that's within reason. And again, I emphasize as a deterrent.
Do we have a second for the amendment?
I think you have to set the fines to a specific amount. And I think what Chief Quigley is telling us, Paul, is that we're at the highest amount possible under our current regs, which max out at 100. And so unless we change our regulations, which is a separate issue, I don't think we can.
I'd like to come back to the board with what Paul's talking about, if I could. But.
Okay, you're coming back to the board anyway, so we could pass this and change it later.
Can I make a suggestion, Paul? If you withdraw your amendment and just keep your second for Corey, we can put the higher fines in place now while we consider the other options that may exist at a later date when the chief comes back on a variety of different matters, including if we can go higher than 100 if we amend the regulations. Does that make sense?
And we can get that, Chief, we can get on the agenda as soon as we could.
Next meeting, sure.
Perfect. And I would withdraw the amendment and second the motion.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the parking fines as presented by Chief Quigley. Is there discussion? Tracy, has there been any discussion from the audience?
Corey Evans, aye.
No,
No.
wait a minute.
No,
Sorry.
no
No,
questions.
been no further discussion. I call for the vote. Corey,
Corey Evans, aye. Apologies, I had an audio issue.
Paul,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean,
Haley Dipple Dye.
Jack Creighton, aye. Okay, thank you, Chief. Well done.
Yeah.
And we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you. And just a housekeeping matter. If Tracy could copy and paste that fine schedule onto your stationery, I can certify, I can notarize that vote and I'll file it with the town clerk. And these will take effect tomorrow morning.
Okay. Tracy, please do so.
Thank you, Chief.
And just again, as a side note, we use an electronic parking, it's basically a smartphone with a printer. We can change these fines at the stroke of a key, which is nice. We don't have to reprint books.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Jean,
Oh, sorry.
And Chief, I'm sure you're already like 3 steps ahead of me on this, but we should probably have Justin put something out to alert people, to give them notice that there's no fine structure in place.
Absolutely.
Once we get this, formal station.
I'll take care of that in the morning.
and I trust your discretion that residents of Cohasset who get caught up in this might be given a little bit of break in the beginning.
It's a separation of powers. That's a Tracy question.
All right, well,
I like that.
I kind of know the answer, Bill, because
Okay.
anyway, thank you very much. This has been very helpful. I see waiting, we have Tanya Bodell, and she's going to talk about the electric school bus. I think there was a song about that, or whatever, but anyway, Tanya. Oops, you're muted.
I am muted. Hello, everybody. Thank you for putting me on the schedule for this. We have some exciting news to share, and it is tied to a demonstration project that the Alternative Energy Committee has been working on since October. So in October, we were approached about a potential demonstration project tied to an electric school bus, and we pursued it. We took it to the school committee, who voted to have us look more into it. And over the past 5 months, we've been negotiating back and forth with NLX, who would be the one who we entered into the agreement with. And we have come to a proposal, which we think is a no-brainer. And if you want, I can share my screen just to quickly run through a couple of slides. And then I have a public service announcement at the end about one other thing that we're working on. But it's not, it's just a public service announcement. All right, so
Pardon me.
I'm assuming everybody can see this. So we're going to just quickly talk about the school bus demonstration project. All right, as we said, we've been working on this for 9 months, and the grant sponsor is Mass CEC. There was a second grant that was also obtained by NLX. In addition, National Grid has offered to pay for the charging station, which would be a level 2 charging station that could be placed anywhere that the town wants it to be placed. And it would have 2 ports, one for the electric bus and one for town cars or the public if we wanted. There's an option to lease or own 1 bus. And we also looked at a 5-year or 7-year lease option. And the price that has come out to bid is better than what we're currently paying for the diesel buses under the existing 1-year extension of the lease. And that is because the proposal includes the electricity and all of the costs associated with charging the bus. It also includes the maintenance and the management of the charging times. And the reason it's a demonstration project is because NLX, when we're not using those buses, and we would have priority when the town is not using the buses, NLX would be able to peak shave and sell capacity into the marketplace. And they would make sure that the bus is charged, fully charged when we need it. And since these buses tend to operate on a schedule, it's very easy to do that. There's a 12-month lead time. We need to try to get this done by July, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But it's a great opportunity, and tomorrow we're presenting this to the school committee. So what we want to do is give you a heads up that this is something we've been working on, which you already knew, but we finally come to fruition on a proposal that seems to work. And we're hopeful that the select board would be supportive. One other thing I want to talk about is why we need to think about doing this now and why we would do it in this way. You may have already heard that the EPA has issued $5 billion of electric school bus funding, and that's going to be rolled out over the next 5 years. And the first 500 million was open for grant proposals on May 20th. So this sounds all great until you read the fine print, which clearly shows that this money, this first tranche of money, is prioritized across all 50 states. They have to give at least one grant per state. And they are prioritizing those towns that have poverty levels above 20%. So just to show you where we are, no surprise. And these are just, random, the states at the bottom are every 250 entries. But you can see Cohasset is probably not going to get any of this initial money. And so what this demonstration project allows us to do is get ahead of the curve. The first 500 million of grants from the EPA are not going to be awarded until September. We can put our school bus order in first, get it operational by September 2023, and start collecting data and seeing whether this is something that we'll want to do within the 5 years or at the end of the 5 years, or not for 10 years. But this gives us an opportunity at no incremental cost to test it out, have an electric school bus, collect the data, and make an informed decision down the line. And so that's on the electric school buses. And I'll stop here to see if there are any questions.
So Tanya, thanks for the presentation. It's great, very interesting. Quick logistics question, because I know where we store the school buses has sort of been a moving target. And so if we're going to do charging, do we have a sense of where this school bus might charge if we have to do, a permanent installation somewhere? Is it going to be on the school property somewhere?
So this is up to the town and the schools to decide where to put it. The nice thing is it's one school bus, so we're not talking about the whole fleet. And it's one school bus that if next year we decide that's not the right spot, we want to put it with other electric school buses someplace else, we can set that up there. But because this initial charger is a level 2 charger, which can be used for cars as well as school buses,
Okay.
and it's being effectively donated by National Grid as part of the lease program, it's in my mind, it's a no cost decision.
So let's say we put it hypothetically at the back of the town hall parking lot around the edge, and we install a charger there. It could also be used as just one more regular charger when the bus is out, whether it's, through NXL or whoever's using it.
Yep, no, that's exactly right. And I think, I have, as you noted, where the buses park has become an issue and well above my pay grade. So I would defer to the towns and the town and the school on where they want to put this. But I think there was some comfort that it's only one bus. And it's a charger that can be fungible in the event we want to move it someplace else.
Mhm. Can I see, Tracy, can you get it so I can see the other board members? So I can see who wants to speak.
Sure. Corey has his hand up. Tanya, do you want to just take down your
Yep.
picture for a moment?
Yeah.
Sure.
Corey?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, this has kind of always been the idea is that at one point, an electric school bus, not only being better for our kids, is gonna be less expensive to maintain. And it's great that we're hitting that point. And I do think, you know, a decision point will have to be made about what we do with the rest of the fleet, especially because we're already up against them. But I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have one and say, okay, are we ready for that whole transition, or maybe 1.5? But if we can do one in a way that costs us less money, this makes a lot of sense to me. So I think I hope the school committee, gives you everything you need. I'd love to see this on our roads.
Okay. Any other comments?
But I just want to quickly respond. Right now, electric school buses are 3 times the cost of a diesel bus. Very, very expensive. So it's been a lot of hard work by NLX and the town and the schools negotiating, and the Alternative Energy Committee negotiating with NLX to get this to where we are. It could be hard to match this. Not impossible. I'm just setting the expectations. But in 5 years, once $5 billion of electric school bus grants have run through the system, I would expect the electric school bus cost curve, they would have driven down the electric school bus cost curve. And we would then be in a more economic position even without grants. But we're going to keep trying to find them. And we have a reputation now as being innovative and open. And I think this is an example of the benefits of that.
And for here and now, this does not commit the town further. It's one parking area, does not commit the town, and we're aware of these other issues, but those aren't raised. Tracy, does anybody in the audience wish to speak on this?
Nope.
Does anybody
quiet.
else on the select board? And Tracy, I mean, Tanya has another comment after we decide on that, but if there's no, Jean?
I just have one further question. As we think about the future and where the demonstration may lead, do you know if the EPA grants may be in the second or third funding in any event, if that's where Cohasset lands, allows for funding for the installation and parking? Is that something that we might be able to subsume within the grant, which would be really
right.
great?
Yep. And my understanding is that right now it does allow for the installation of the charging station, but does not allow for the interconnection costs, which
Okay.
is a big deal. So this now adds a third dimension to where you park the buses if we go electric, which is where can our system support them. So we've already been talking to National Grid. We have a map. We have a good idea of what works, what doesn't work. And that's going to be an ongoing conversation. I will also just put it into perspective, the EPA money, if you're going to fully subsidize electric buses, the most they'd be able to fund with a full subsidization under current prices is around 25,000 school buses. That's what the $5 billion will buy you. And there's around 500,000 school buses in the country. So $5 billion sounds like a lot. And trust me, if they want to have an innovative demonstration project, vehicle to grid, mobile storage, I think that's where a town like Cohasset can jump in, because we've done a lot of work in that area. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very competitive and very tough to try to get that money because of where we are.
But we can move forward with this. And so is there any further comment on this, approving this from the board? Board would entertain a motion.
Well, I don't think at this point, Jack, I think this was just to get an overview, right? We're going to wait for the school committee. So that way, when Tanya comes after the school committee does its vote, we all know what the issues are, and then we can do the vote based on what the school committee does. I think that's
Whichever way the board feels, we could approve it now, and then the school committee knows we approve it. Wait for the school committee. It really makes no difference.
I think we have to wait because it's not listed on the agenda as a vote.
Okay.
The sequencing was to let the school committee do it first.
Okay, so Tanya, you had something else you wanted to talk to us about.
Yes, public service announcement for the Alternative Energy Committee's meeting this Thursday at 7:30. We have a company called Energy Sage coming to present. What Energy Sage does is there's about 18 months of federal subsidies on solar left. And by 2024, the subsidies go down to 0. So if anybody in the town is looking to put solar on their rooftops today, Energy Sage is a way to help educate you and help you compare bids and help bring the market to you. And if you'd like to learn more, come attend our Alternative Energy Committee meeting. Now's the time to start moving forward. And we get a lot of calls asking us what we think. And the nice thing is we can now say Energy Sage has that information. And if the town wants, I'll come to you in the future, they would put together a Cohasset specific page with Cohasset specific comparisons and all that. So come to our meeting at Thursday at 7:30 and learn more about how to be able to compare alternative solar opportunities and educate yourselves for anybody in town who wants to put it on your roofs.
Very good. Thank you. You've done great work. We appreciate it.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Moving forward, we're request use of ARPA funds. Chris?
Lauren's coming in too, Jack.
Yeah, oh, good. If Chris Senior and Laura Lind.
So Lauren is going to describe an opportunity the town has to pursue a grant that involves resiliency in the harbor and is seeking consideration of advancing some money now out of ARPA funds to begin that process, which would allow the grant to go further. And without getting into details, which Lauren will do far better than I'd be happy to turn over to Lauren.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Lind. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director for the Town of Cohasset. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. So I'm just going to quickly summarize a request. The total would be not to exceed $45,000 from the ARPA funding for coastal resilience flood modeling. The intent of the project would be to partner with a consultant group known as Woods Hole Group, which is an international environmental services science and engineering firm that provides oceanographic and coastal, specialty services. They've done a lot of really great projects in neighboring communities and across the Commonwealth, but also beyond our state. The intent would be to take a look at our specific area, looking at Cohasset Cove as you think about where the harbor comes in, bends around towards the Jane Brook watershed and the associated coastal stormwater sort of tidal infrastructure that we have in that area. And what this would do is it would create a model to better understand future flooding risks from different if you think about whether we could have a king tide, hurricane, sort of storm force things coming in from the ocean, or if it's just an increased event of precipitation and you have a lot of stormwater runoff. It's looking at these different sort of scenarios and helping us get to the next level of assessment so that we can understand potential infrastructure solutions that could help better provide resilience for these areas. The reason why we're asking to do this now is because, as I mentioned, we're working with Woods Hole Group to prepare for this project. Part of this will include an application in the ballpark of $200,000 for Coastal Zone Management's program for coastal resilient, which is a state funding program. The funding program would be, if awarded, allocated in the fall, and it would have a concrete timeline for when it would need to be expended. And the concern is that if we leave all of this work to be done at that time, we won't have enough time in that cycle to complete the modeling and then do the afterwork. So the thought now is that if we could use ARPA funding, we could preload this information, which will be useful for future planning and design for this project, but also many other useful, sort of projects, infrastructure analysis in the future for this area. So we're looking to do that now so that we can unlock the funding and, advance the work even further with this grant application. So that's in a nutshell what I'm looking to do. I did send a memo with a little map. If it's helpful, I could just quickly share for the public's benefit. I don't have screen sharing capability, but
Laura, thank you. That was very clear. So to clarify, what you're proposing, all right.
This is a map of sort of the summary area that you're looking at, is the Cove and the James Brook watershed.
Okay, so the idea is that we will take from ARPA money, which is grant money essentially, $45,000, and we will we will set ourselves up to get that money back through a larger grant program. Is that the scenario?
The scenario would be this $45,000 would set us up with the modeling program to put in the data and get to the next step, which we would ask for $200,000 through the state funding program to advance that next level.
Okay. So we're putting at risk $45,000 of basically grant money from ARPA. So it's not taxpayer money. And then that sets us up to get 200,000.
Correct. This is for this particular grant program. It may also benefit us for other grant programs in the future.
Okay, but that's the scenario. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Can we go back to seeing all the board members on, and unless is anybody wants to look at that graphic again, or have we seen enough? Okay, so comments. I see Corey has his hand up, and then Jean.
Yeah, I want to say this is my thoughts on this is important, and this board has always been very protective of the ARPA funding. I think that's the proper way to address it. I think this rises to the occasion, especially when it comes to timing. I was very impacted by the presentation that the Cohasset Harbor Infrastructure Planning Group did, especially with, and I want to specifically thank Tom Bell, and I know I did a lot of work on some of the modeling that they did on that project. And I think a lot of people saw that, and it all, when you see things on a map and you see things animated and you see the lines, you see what's going to be impacted, it drives the message home. So this, I think this is something we need to do, and funding it is the next step.
Okay. Corey or Jean? I mean, Paul or
Jean was ahead of me, Jack.
Okay, Jean?
Thanks, Lauren, for the succinct yet informative presentation. I do agree with Corey on this. And, one of the things that I believe ARPA funding was meant to be used for, in part, if I recall correctly in the statute, was resiliency. Although I could be wrong about that. So one quick question, just in terms of how the next grant works. Are we able to seek reimbursement for the $45,000 we spent for the foundational data in the coastal resiliency state grant? Because sometimes you can do that, right? Like for the initial consulting work you've done to like get up to speed with that grant. Do you know if that's at all a possibility? Because then, we're looking at an investment that we may be able to fully recover at the end of the day, depending on the grant rules.
I did explore that possibility. It doesn't look like that is an applicable use for the
Okay.
funds, regrettably.
Okay. I couldn't recall what it was on that. Well, in any event, it's probably still worth it. And Woods Hole is a great group. They did a lot of intense planning for Hingham too. And they're still working on that. So a lot of the work that they've done in other towns, I think, will be helpful to inform ours as well. So thanks.
Paul?
Oh, Lauren, how are you?
Good to see you, Paul.
Long time no see. Question, does this take into account projects in and lining the harbor, the effect of projects that and what their effect on the harbor is? I need just a quick education.
So it will take a look at sort of infrastructure in place where high tides are. If you think about the stormwater mapping that we had done for the previous MVP grant, it takes a look at things like that, but it can go beyond. If there's been infrastructure improvements to the seawall, for example, they'll be able to map that. They'll understand what has changed in terms of, height, and they'll do the mapping and analysis of that so that we have a numeric information to do this and then project future circumstances and make potential recommendations for example, if you want to increase the seawall, or that's just one example of an infrastructure solution that they may suggest.
Well, let's say for instance, the effects of the condo project coming in down in the harbor.
Right. So we have provided Woods Hole Group already with the as-built plan for that seawall that we had as a permitting project. So they do have that information as well.
Good. That's nice to know. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Tracy, is anybody from the community expressed an interest?
Nope.
We have any further discussion from the board on this? So what you're So we would need to approve this request.
I would move to approve $45,000 of ARPA funding in order to hire the Woods Hole Group to do the foundational data work in order to prepare us for applying for the state grant.
Do we have,
Do you want to just add coastal resilience for coastal resilience flood modeling to that? Jean?
And coastal resilience flood modeling.
do we have a second?
I would second it with Corey's, yeah, so.
Yeah,
Paul.
okay. Paul seconded. Was there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call vote, starting with, I guess we'll talk with Paul Grady and
We can
Corey.
just do the
Jean.
normal order. Is that, if that's okay? I think it's Corey,
I'm-
Jean, Paul, Jack.
I'm just looking at what I'm seeing on my screen.
Okay.
Starting on the left.
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean Haley Dippled.
Jack Creighton, aye. Motion carries. Okay,
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
thank you.
See you there, Lauren.
Done a very good job. We appreciate that. We have boards and committees. We've all gotten a list of the vacancies, and I think people at home should be aware that we will get this posted on the town website, so you'll know what's available, and we'll talk to our communication specialist and have some, yeah, Paul, in just a
I'm
second.
sorry, Sandra, I was wondering if you can make the screen bigger. I can't see anybody. I've got Lauren's, her box now is in the full screen.
Okay,
That's the reason I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no, that's fine. Oh, is that better? I don't control the,
Now, I see you.
okay,
Paul, if you click on the view up in your right-hand corner of your screen, it says view with a couple of dots. That'll give you a different view. You want to go back to gallery instead of just speaker.
All right. I screwed up then. There it is. Thanks so much, Tracy.
okay. All right. Anyway, we have some openings on boards and commissions. We want to publicize that, and for those people who are watching, what you're seeing is a town that runs itself through grassroots democracy. And when you join a board and commission, the select board listens, other parts of the town listen, because you are a very important part of the decision-making process. You hear talks about the harbor committee, planning board. Well, they sit and they meet, but they make decisions that matter to our town. It matters to your neighborhood. It matters to this quality of life. So please take a look at it. Tracy tells me that after sending out a lot of information, a lot of the board members have come right back and said they're renewing. So we're in very good shape, but we will have that list. I'm not going to post it unless, Tracy, is there something we could post easily and quickly scroll through?
Right now,
Yes,
hang on, let me see if I can grab something.
okay. Just so you give an idea of all the opportunities, if you're interested in planning, if you're interested in zoning, if you're interested in the environment and conservation, stormwater, there's a spot for you. And the nice thing about it in our town anyway, is your opinion and your work is respected. And you make a difference. So people say, hey, does it make a difference? Well, yes, it does. Go ahead, Jean.
Jack, if I could just interject, following our discussion from last night about, in particular, the select board working groups. I think there's probably going to be some opportunities for new groups coming up in the future. I think there's also going to be opportunities to streamline some existing groups, as we were talking about, that fall under the master plan umbrella. And so I do think we need to discuss that at a later date in terms of what exactly we want to do there. But I think before we, take in, I think we need to make some decisions on that front.
Mhm. Tracy, if we're not able to get that up, oh, there we go. Now, what you're looking at is just the boards and committees and the number of members and which ones are, how it works. And just, if you can see it clearly, this just gives you an idea of the wide range of choices that you have. Maybe you're interested in the housing authority. Maybe you're interested in library, maybe on fields. So these are the types of opportunities, and we don't have to decide now, but just so anybody who wants to participate, there's a spot for you. And it's meaningful. You will make a difference, and we'll be forever grateful. Well, and so is Rover. Okay, anyway, please consider that. But, does anybody on the board have comments on boards and committees? Or shall we just move on to the schedule of meetings?
I was just going to, I think your point about how important this is certainly very well taken, Jack. And I'm really excited to see what this new communications push can do, getting people involved. The question is always, how can I be involved? And I'm looking forward to being able to fix that a little bit. So,
any other comments? Okay, for Jane, did you?
Yeah, and I do think that there are some committees where there's no, for example, availabilities for, there's no open spots for citizens or residents unless they are part of another committee. And so, I do think when people reach out and say, hey, I want to be on this committee, I know that people have, wanted to participate, but haven't been able to because, for example, the only citizen at large positions, there are just no availabilities. And so I do think that's something too that, we want to keep our eye on, and also look at where those open spots are on those committees, because again, sometimes you have to be on another committee to be the liaison on the committee. Like CPC is one example. Like I'm looking right now, there's no citizen at large positions available, but it appears that we do have, because I'm on CPC, it appears that we probably will have an open spot vis-a-vis planning board. We'll have an open spot through open space and recreation, according to this, although I'm not sure if that's accurate. And so again, just things for people to consider, that there may be some triangulation going on too. And if you have questions, you should definitely reach out to us. Because you may, for example, be appointed to open space, and you can then become the CPC liaison through that approach.
My understanding from CPC that there's probably 2 openings that they anticipate. There may be a third one, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's a good point, Jean. Any further discussion on the boards and committees? Okay, I'm looking at we're fine. Jean, do you have a copy of the select board schedule? Yep.
Yes, I do.
Yes, okay. So Jean, if you could go over what our select board schedule is for the coming year. People should keep in mind that this is a schedule. It may be modified. We may find that there are problems getting a quorum. There may be where we have to change something unexpected, but this is so people will have a pretty good idea of when the select board will be meeting in the next year. So Jean, can you put that up?
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I'm just trying to share my screen. Here we go. Can you guys see it now? No?
Nope. There we go.
No, okay. I think, Corey, your hand is up before I begin sort of going through. Do you want to?
yeah, I can wait till after you're done.
Okay. Well, this was a schedule that Chris Senior proposed, and he just wanted to run it past us to make sure there weren't any obvious conflicts that people spotted. So, we should certainly review that. I think one nuance that we need to maybe consider a little more carefully is fall town meeting and how it relates with the fall election. We've talked about doing some projects in the fall, and that may affect the timing of the fall meeting. Maybe not. So I do think that's something that we probably want to continue to discuss. So I did want to flag that. The other thing that I wanted to flag is that, and Chris has already done some of this, which is great. With this meeting schedule, I think our intent is to begin to fill in a straw man schedule, including for working groups and various committees of ours to come and provide more routine updates, particularly if they are a priority. For example, the zoning bylaw working group, we're probably going to have them on the agenda more regularly. So if we can land on a schedule that we all generally can live with right now, then we're going to start to slot in other folks on a going forward basis. Such that, for example, we'll know February 9th, we have the zoning bylaw working group slotted in to give us an update on where they are. And, if something changes, we can react to that. But just so the committees have a sense too of where they fit into our schedule. So we're going to try to pre-populate the schedule as much as possible and, come back with that as well. Once we reach out to the different groups and,
Okay.
run that past them to make sure there's no obvious conflicts on their end.
And just to clarify, the purpose, this comes to a vote. We could put it off, but the vote would be with the clear understanding that it is subject to change. So it's not cast in stone, but it's something we want to kind of look at so people can plan vacations, work around their work schedules, family issues or whatever. So if we could go back to the regular screen, or does anybody have comments?
I have one thing. One thing, we've been talking about on and off is in-person versus virtual. And we did have that issue last meeting with the resident, I guess so, or at least a homeowner who tried to go to town hall. So I would recommend that if we're going to pass a schedule, we should add a clear indication of what's going to be virtual, what's going to be in person. Because I do think that on the fly changes are going to confuse people. And it does seem like there's at least there's a not insignificant push to have in-person meetings again that I'm getting from residents. So.
Well, I think that we wish to consider that, but that's not, we can discuss that, but that's not up for a vote, virtual versus Zoom. But I do think it's something that we really should tackle. This is to approve a tentative schedule, but I do think on a future thing, we should really start getting into Zoom, hybrid, what it means. But for the purpose of this to vote, we're just voting on the schedule. We're not voting on the how the meeting is held. Chris?
And if I could just underscore, there's just a couple of, there's going to be some, as Gene pointed out, some key deadlines. For example, you're going to need to set a date for a special town meeting, probably by August. So there's enough time. And the date for annual town meeting and the annual election needs to be set by the end of December, before the end of the calendar year. There's some, so when you adopt the meeting schedule, it's not going to include those. You're going to do this separately. I just put some dates in there that kind of fit the historic patterns.
Mhm.
The only date that's a little variable at the moment in the fall is the first meeting in November. The challenge is that election day is the 8th, and on a general election day, there can't be any other board or committee meetings. So again, the board can decide now, and you can always change it, as Jack said, later. You can either move it back to the week before and have a back-to-back set of meetings, just not impossible. Do the 25th and the 1st, or you go that Wednesday after the election day. Again, depending on what you end up doing with the potential, with any kind of ballot questions that may or may not go in front of the voters, you may want to do something right after the election anyway to decide what happens next. That's something you'll have to decide, but I would recommend you adopt the calendar by the next meeting. And at the very least, if you would just potentially adopt the July 2 dates, because we are always setting dates a couple of meetings ahead for permits and things like that. So if the board would at least, Jack, consider setting the dates for at least July 12th and the 26th, with an understanding, by the way, the 12th will be the day for the annual budget update joint meeting with advisory. That's the day that Don will make a recommendation to move money around among some line items to balance the budget at the end of the year.
So, board, what Chris is really giving us, that we can just go forward and approve, a couple of meetings in the future. We can approve this, and it's clearly can be amended at any time. I do think that we will be addressing, and it will be on a future agenda, Zoom versus hybrid and all that. But that's not what this vote is about. This vote is about a schedule. So what's the thought of the board on how we want to proceed?
And I don't know if you want to address the hand in the audience, but I think that I'm prepared to move to vote the schedule of the board meetings, including the 2 upcoming July ones at this point.
Any other comments from the board before we go to the hand in the audience? Okay, Tracy, can you bring forward whoever's in the audience wishes to speak? Please identify yourself by your name and address.
I just let in Tom Callahan.
Tom Callahan. Tom, you're muted.
My apologies. This was a delayed reaction to your previous topic of boards and committees. A question popped in my head, but I'm not here to speak on this particular topic.
Okay. Well, we will allow you to go out of order. Tom, do you have
no, finish your business here, and then before you jump into the next one, I just have a quick question.
Okay. So what is the sense of the board? Jean, are you making a motion? Is there further discussion?
I would move to adopt the proposed FY 2023 select board meeting schedule as listed in our packets as to the select board meetings, understanding, we're going to have to set the fall town meeting and the annual town meeting and election at a later date.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have motion to approve the schedule subject to the what Jean just said, and I don't think we have to. We've heard that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I call the vote. Paul Grady, go first. I'm trying to just rotate it around is what appears on my screen, which is different from what appears on your screen. Paul, your vote?
As far as the schedule goes, I'll vote aye right now.
Corey? Jean?
Haley Dipple die.
Jack Creighton, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we have the town, and we're almost right on schedule. The town manager update. He's going to talk about the renewal. But I do think, in deference to COVID, that Chris, do what you're comfortable with, and don't feel you have to reinvent the wheel here. You're looking a little peaked, my friend.
This will be quick. So several years, well, actually 3 years ago, the town engaged special counsel Bill Solomon on behalf of the of 143 and the Cable Advisory Committee to negotiate extended agreements with for cable, and those were completed. Comcast, we entered a 10-year deal. Verizon only wanted a 5 because they were insisting they were going to be out of the fiber business in 5 years. Well, lo and behold, they're not out of the fiber business. They're still in the fiber business, and they're looking for a 5-year renewal. And there's like a 1.5 year, 2 year advance notice they have to give. There's nothing that has to happen tonight. I just want to let you know. I have talked to 143. Historically, the town has had a cable advisory committee that gets reconstituted. I don't know if it's going to be necessary to do that. You might just empower the 143 board to do that because historically they've been one and the same anyway. But again, I'll defer to Corey as his thoughts. And then if the board, if I just get some consensus, what I'll do is I'll reach out like we had before, and I'll talk to our law firm KP. I'll talk to Bill Solomon, get some proposals about the representation on this, and then prepare to circle back sometime later this summer. There's no like immediate urgency, but it's something that should probably be wrapped up at the end of the summer, just to retain somebody. What happened last time is the board officially retained somebody, and 143 paid because they get all the money at the end of the day out of this deal. So that was the deal that was struck last time, and the town got a much more favorable agreement. So that the representation by Mr. Solomon was successful. So so that's my update. I don't know if Corey had some question about that.
Yeah, Corey, do you have any comments from the 143 perspective?
Yeah, right. So just from some history, I mean, historically, the board of directors for the 143 TV station, we co-served as the cable advisory board as well. However, the cable advisory board really has no business except for negotiating these contracts. So it was the opinion of that board that having the two hats really didn't serve a purpose any longer. To Chris's point, the board last time did use Attorney Solomon, my apologies, for this, and largely this is very procedural now. When the cable advisory board was first introduced, there was a policy question. Okay, like how do we do cable TV in our town? You know, having internet and having cable TV and data services throughout town is now a default. It is not really a policy decision whether we want to do it or not. So this is, I think, what I would recommend the board do. I don't see the reason for the cable advisory board to be reconstituted. I think it'd be proper for this board to authorize Mr. Senior to work with Attorney Solomon to negotiate the best possible outcome for Cohasset. And then ultimately this board, the select board, this cable advisory board can only advise. So it always ends up on our table anyway. So I would recommend that Chris Senior then brings back the proposed agreement to this board for our approval. And I do agree that historically it's been the funds from the cable contract that then paid for Attorney Solomon's services. I think that's appropriate for this time as well. Did that make sense?
So the cable advisory board was the original advisory board that reported to the select board, and you're saying that it should just go directly to the select board at this point?
It should just go directly to special counsel, because that's effectively what the cable advisory board did last time. We just worked with special counsel, and special counsel did all the negotiation. Attorney Solomon basically negotiates the contract statewide.
And then that comes to the select board.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Okay. So is everybody clear on that? And we don't have to vote on that tonight either. We can just let Chris know that proceed. I don't think this requires a formal vote. And it's not actually calling for a vote. So do we have any, Chris, were you?
If there's no objection, I'll solicit from our town council, and I'll ask Mr. Solomon for some proposal, and I'll circulate it to the board, and you can, if you want to have someone present, that's great. Again, to Corey's point, the last renewal was more complicated, and we got in more detail. Some of the ground had changed. So having a lawyer who specialized in this was helpful. As a result, 143 is getting substantially greater funding than it did in the prior agreement. So it was a very good thing. Since those are our new foundations, we don't really have much to negotiate. And again, the only reason we're doing this at all is because Verizon didn't want to go 10 years, which is the standard length of these things.
So we're good to go.
Correct. I have nothing else at this point either. So other than my apologies for not being able to make last night. So
that's all right.
Quick procedural question. Who does Attorney Solomon represent? 143 Cohasset.
The town. If the agreements is between the franchise agreements with the town, 143 is a beneficiary because they're getting the funding. If I can put it.
And so is 143 paying for Solomon and KP services relating to this contract?
The recommendation would be whatever firm has ended up being retained for this. Yes, that would be paid for by 143, the corporation. So,
right. Okay.
So that's what happened last time. But we can work on the details of it. So.
Yeah, good point, Gene.
Other than that, again, you just had a long meeting last night. I think the weather's good. Fingers crossed. The farmers market opened. I'm sorry I missed the opening last week. So that's open. So please come into the common. We're looking to have a regular presence at the farmers market. I will give the board more information on that. Obviously, you're all free to visit anytime you want anyway. But we're going to look to have an official regular town table there, so people can just stop in. I mean, I wander the market when I'm in anyway. That said, it's a great opportunity for people just to mingle and ask questions. And so I'd like to. We're looking to have a regular town presence of that for the rest of the season. I think it's a good place to just informally meet and talk, and also to share information. And I think we'll have Justin there regularly too, just to have a presence and get feedback from residents. It's just one of those great Cohasset institutions that really, it's a really nice thing. And other than that, I think again, you've already heard about all the events coming up. So other than that, I'm good.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That was a good manager, and I hope you feel better soon. Now we're going to select board comments. What I thought I would do is I'm going to try to rotate who speaks first, and we'll have to figure that out. But for now, I thought we would start with our newest board member, Paul Grady, your comments, and then we'll go chronologically.
My comments, Jack, on what? The meeting tonight?
No, the select board, Paul, select board comments is a time when you as a select board member and all of us have an opportunity to address board members, the town, whatever you want to make comments about. It could be congratulations for a field hockey or a lacrosse team that did well or won something. It could be an event around town. It could be something with governance, entirely what you want to do. It's your time, your spotlight.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the people that elected us to serve them. And I would also say that I hope that their trust wasn't misplaced. I think this is going to be a good board. I think last night's meeting was a true success. Now, if we keep pushing the ball forward, and I think we're going to get some great things done. And so again, I'd like to, and I'm anxious to see the communications aspect reach. I'd love to hear from people in the town. I think we all would. And I want them to know that we're here to respond to them. That's be the gist of my comments tonight.
Okay, thank you. Jane, you're next. I'm doing chronologically when you were elected to the board.
Okay. So I would echo Paul's comments. I thought the select board had a great meeting last night. I believe it was recorded vis-a-vis video. I think that we had a really good in-depth, thoughtful discussion, including as to reflecting on what we could have done better and then how to make changes to make it better going forward and actually get some real results on a timely basis. And so I think we're all, sort of unified in our vision for Cohasset. And I think that's a great thing. And I think it bodes really well for this upcoming year. On a related note, I did want to say congratulations to the class of 2022 who graduated this weekend. My cousin Sam Rogers was one of the high school graduates, and it was great watching him and all of the other class members graduate. I was impressed with. all of the speeches, and the schools did a great job, and it was just a great event. So congratulations to all of the recent graduates, whether at Cohasset High or other schools across that kids are attending across Cohasset.
Corey.
So today was one of the most amazing programs we have in this town is the Safe Harbor program, and today was a kind of a 5-year celebration for that program. It's amazing how much work they've gotten done and how ingrained this program is in our community, being so young. And it's come up now in my mind, especially because of some of the kind of broader nationwide challenges that we're facing at the moment. And it's important, and I wanted to share with everybody that Safe Harbor, obviously the basis of it is substance abuse, alcohol and drugs, but it's more than that. It's about mental health. It's about how we engage with each other. It's about how we have difficult questions, difficult conversations, ask difficult questions, how we address bullying and child health. Safe Harbor is not just about stopping drinking. It's about looking holistically at the health of our children. So this is a program which I think we need more than ever. I'm glad that we have funded it through town funds going forward. I'm looking forward to getting more resources for that program. And I think it's something we always need to be leaning into because it is getting students to talk to students, getting kids to talk to kids and their friends is the only way that we're really going to have honest conversations about how we treat each other and how this community holds itself together. So shout out to everyone at Safe Harbor and everyone who's, including student ambassadors, have done work for them. And if you have questions about again, mental health and your children and whatever it is, that's what they're there for. So never hesitate to reach out to Safe Harbor at safeharborcohasset.org. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, first of all, it's an honor to serve this town, my beloved town, as chair. This is a very, very special town. And I think what we saw in our meeting yesterday is concerned, committed residents who've put their hat in the ring and gotten elected to the select board and done a lot of other things. And looking at our town and saying, this is a wonderful town. How do we keep it wonderful? How do we move it forward? How do we put aside, various factions and differences of opinion and understand that we all took an oath to serve the town of Cohasset, and we will all work and honor that oath to move forward. And it was very heartening to see round and round the table and everybody agreed on what we needed to do. And we will work together, and we are trying to make sure that we have achievable things that can be done, that have broad consensus. And there's a lot of issues that have been kind of kicking around and nobody's figured it out. And I think we got a commitment last night that we're going to take the most achievable ones that can be done and get them done. It's a bit of a big task. And the board is going to need the help of our boards and committees. We're going to need the help of the citizens. We will work to make sure the citizens have the information that you need to understand and have it in a way that's easy for you to find, because we need your participation. We need your support. We need to hear from you as to what you want, because ultimately what you want is what we will do, because it's your town. So again, I want to congratulate and thank my fellow board members. It was a very, very impressive meeting last night, and I don't say impressive lightly. It was very impressive, and I think the board has well served the town of Cohasset. And to the town of Cohasset, from all of us, thank you for placing your trust in us, and we will honor that trust. And thank you. Now, who wants to say adjourned?
Wait a minute, don't forget about Tom Callahan. He's been waiting.
Oh my God. Tom Callahan, speaking of service.
And not what, no big deal. It's just a thought popped in my head when you were talking about boards and committees. And I sent you a memo, the other day about my board's current thoughts about liaison assignments. And I'm wondering, can a board designate a citizen to be its representative on another committee? Or does it have to be a board
Yeah.
member? Because it might kill two birds with one stone.
I know,
where-
Tom, I don't want to interrupt. Well,
Yeah,
that's,
that's right.
that's way not on the agenda. So, but we can, we'll talk offline on
Yeah,
that.
if somebody could look into
Okay.
that, that would
Fair.
kill two birds with one stone, but then, thanks.
Very
Appreciate
good.
it.
Thank you, Tom.
Right.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. We've had a motion made and seconded. Mr. Grady,
Yes, sir.
we'll start this off. Roll call vote.
Paul Grady, aye.
Corey,
Corey Evans, aye.
Gene,
Haley Dippold, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. This meeting is officially adjourned, and thank all of you, and thank you, Chris. And a special thanks to Tracy behind the scenes. None of this would happen without her help. Very good.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.